Now, Ollie, we are all here. Yeah, great, fantastic. So, second item, do we have any declarations of interest on any of the motions coming up? Councillor Fernandez.
Agenda item 8, Gamden Park preparatory works for car park surfacing. It's just a ward member for that particular ward count.
Any other councillor? Yes.
Same item. I'm division Somerset Council divisional member for that.
Is there anything else? No.
Yeah.
Okay, great, lovely, thank you. So next item, the minutes from the previous meeting. So I have been here. Sorry. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to? Oh, hello. This is this is a new one. This has started before. Well, I'll take them in the order that they were made. So, Councillor Furby.
Yes, just one thing. My name is spelled incorrectly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
FER instead of IR.
Yeah. Initial. And Councillor Ellis, or should I say? Oh no, you have your name spelled.
Yeah, no, it's just a query really. I mean, I know the minutes, I think we use AI obviously very efficiently to sort of help generate the minutes, and I do not wish to add to any officer's incredible workload. I just wondered occasionally where some items, like if there's issues raised in discussion that go contrary to what the resolution was, can we reflect that? So the item about the vehicles, procurement of vehicles and equipment, it just, you know, it says we considered this and resolved to do this. But it might just be worth, I don't know, sometimes I just feel, well, that just if you were reading that, you'd have no idea that Councillor Ellis was naughty and voted against or something. I don't know. It's just a bit of context. Sometimes people might like to know, how did my councillor vote on things? Do you know what I mean?
Or at least that
Or what was the gist of the debate?
Unanimous.
Yeah, just what was the gist of the debate?
Contrary.
Yeah.
Yes,
Members felt X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Other members thought A, B, C.
Yes.
Just for a bit of context.
No, I agree.
My thoughts.
And I think actually the version of the minutes or the minutes is to reflect what the opinions were of the councillors, because they are a historical record. So are we able to change that, Ollie? I'm trying to remember what you said now.
No, I didn't. I was away for these, so I didn't write them. But I do take note of the arguments that are made, and some. Yeah, I can make sure to add them in the future.
Are we able to add at least to these minutes that objections? So these are vehicle was raised by Councillor Ellis. Yeah, you can add that.
Then I'm happy.
Yes. Okay.
But also,
So I can't sign these then. Yeah.
no, I'll get a new copy. We can do it next.
Okay. And we change the statement initial. Can change Councillor Fernand's name? Yeah. Well, that's the first. Not being able to see. Well, there you go. To be honest, I think that's what it's good actually. I think people are changing. Yeah, good. Right. So next item is the forward plan. Have a look. So our next meeting will be on the 8th of May. And Staple Grove rights of access. Seems to be the only agenda item. So, Councillor Furlin, I think you need to go. Residents. Just being aware of it. I'm hoping that they're just steering away. Actually, it is providing an active travel route. So there is an advantage to it, as if it's just been given away. That's the only thing coming up, is it? I think at this point in time, it might change. Right. Has anyone got any comments? Okay, that's great. Right, so item 5. Item 5 and 6, we've got a couple of updates. First one is from the Public Toilet Working Group, and I believe an update has been sent in, which you're Paul is going to give us.
So yes, thank you. So there was a public toilets working group meeting held on Monday of this week. I wasn't present at that one. I wasn't the only one. Wasn't present at that one. However, my colleagues.
Minute. This is a shocking surprise.
So I have got comments from the meeting, just to update good folk here. So the public toilet working group meeting 3rd of March focused on reviewing the progress of various public toilet projects. Key discussions included updates on current toilet provisions, project timelines and budgets for Cannon Street and Paul Street toilets and compliance requirements. Decisions were made regarding door choices for Cannon Street and the inclusion of a 3rd toilet cubicle at Paul Street. The meeting also addressed logistical issues with Vivery Park toilets and received positive community feedback on ongoing improvements. Notably, the project timelines were adjusted due to unforeseen issues and new team members were introduced, adding valuable expertise to the group. The key takeaways being introduction of new team members. Richard Seeley has joined as project officer 2 weeks ago, and Emily Glover has joined as project lead a week ago. The current toilet provision update, the drainage issue that occurred last week at Vivery Park has been resolved. Hamilton Galt toilets are under construction. I believe there's a couple of days delay on that. I'm sure the reasons for that. Future discussions are planned for Taunton Green toilets as part of a 5-year play park accessibility review project. The Cannon Street project was delayed by 2 weeks due to asbestos removal. The new completion date is 11th of April. And manual locking doors will be used to stay within budget. Decision on door colours is pending final approval, as is decision on external colours because the toilet is currently white/cream. So the question is, do we want to have that a different colour so it stands out and is more obvious, or still to be decided? For Paul Street toilets, the plans for Paul Street toilets were discussed, including minor amendments to improve safety and functionality, and the decision was made to include a 3rd toilet cubicle despite concerns about antisocial behaviour. I believe that is directly off the access to the lift from the street rather than a front-facing cubicle. Compliance and maintenance. So quotes for compliance services are being gathered. This particularly affects the Changing Places toilet in Building 2, for which we have now received the sum to maintain it for the next 3 years. So it needs to be fully compliant, and that includes a Lola test, which is due on the hoist and the changing drop-down table. We are also considering putting together an engineering policy to ensure all Lola testing, etc., is aligned across the council in liaison with our insurers, going piecemeal for each building that has a roller shutter door, for example. Vivery Park toilets. Ongoing logistical issues with water meter separation are delaying the transfer of the toilet block to the town council from Somerset Council. So once that's resolved, we can sign that across. And on positive feedback, the community has responded very positively to the ongoing improvements in the public toilet facilities. That includes the maintenance from the facilities team, who go out and face some unpleasant situations from day to day, but they are taking that in their stride and they're really making a difference out there, which is fantastic. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And I think that's on behalf of the committee, I think we'd all like to send our thanks and gratitude to the team at the Garrison Field Toilets, because they are doing a great job. And as I say, the number of complaints vanished really as a result. Absolutely. So, that are, yes, as a committee, we'd like to express our thanks to them. Right, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? Councillor Tully.
Didn't mention Hamilton park. That's been delayed. It should have started
Yes,
this week.
yeah, said it's been delayed by a few days. I'm not sure the reasons why for that, from the group. I haven't had a chance to catch up. But there is a delay on that starting.
Councillor Ellis?
Yeah. I might have a slight vested interest in this. Actually, perhaps I should have declared the interest that we played, the Taunton Head play tennis up at Taunton Green on Friday mornings. And we need use of the toilets. And I'm just very keen that pavilion. There's two issues with it. One is well, it's all interconnected, but there are it could easily be turned into a public toilet. So there are toilets that you could unblockade or whatever, I believe, and have them available to the public when they're using that park, because we've got the tennis courts there. There's also a sort of Muga area. You've got all the play stuff. You've got that, you know, the lovely lawn and park itself. We've planted new trees there. It's just a beautiful space. Really great, and it would be lovely to see it more, more use. We could get loads more use out of it. It's got such huge potential, but obviously the lack of public toilets is a big problem. And even just like getting in the building, it's got this weird a system which I would abandon. I don't know if this system could ever work, because it's all got like the doors are on magnets but they never work, and the fobs never work, and they don't work more often than they do, and it's just a bit, it's such a shame. You've got this building and it's not really being fully utilized, and there's so much more scope for it. And that park is a great park, and I think having accessible public toilets up there would be just a huge boon for the community.
Yeah, can you respond to that?
Yes, please do.
So thank you for those comments. We wholeheartedly agree. There are some challenges. The pavilion itself, we're working on to try and get it up to a standard where we can increase lettable income from it. There are changes to the way the pitches are to be used, and we're liaising with different groups, different sports groups, about what that might look like in the future, with potential moving round of certain sports into different parks. The toilets themselves, we understand, have been looked at, and the reason they were closed was because all the copper and fittings were ripped out. So the toilets are isolated and aren't actually toilets. There's spaces within the pavilion at the moment. The big challenge for us, and what we want to include within the play park accessibility review, which I'll give an update on in a few moments, is that they are on the wrong side of the pavilion. They're right on the back. They're not overlooked by anything. They're in the darker area when it gets dusky. So revamping the toilets and making them accessible, absolutely essential for the play park, and there's a crossover with that project, but they've got to be done right, and they've got to be facing and in view of people to prevent them getting in the same situation very quickly again. So absolutely at the top of the agenda, but not an immediate fix. Okay, thank you.
So declare my interest in Taunton Green as the ward member. Would be very interested and very keen to see toilets, and actually that pavilion further utilised. Yeah, so be great. Never look forward to that. Were there any other comments? In that case, we can move on to the play park accessibility working group update. I'm the chair of that. We were supposed to have met yesterday, but due to a clash with other meetings, we have postponed our second meeting until Wednesday the 19th. So there's nothing to report.
It's very little. Very little. I've got a couple of them.
Okay.
If we
Yes, yeah, please do.
Yes, officers, following the first meeting, committed to going and inspecting every play area, which we've now done. And we're working on a draft recommendation report to bring to the next meeting on the 19th. We deliberately looked at the parks and formed our own view without referring back to the official survey on that. Because if we've done that and then we arrive at the same conclusions, we feel much better about the proposal that we're going to put for the first tranche of spend. But it looks like that first tranche needs to be focused on surfacing and accessing existing facilities that we have, to which some people can't get access. There's a lot of mud. There's a lot of soft surfacing, from pathways to specialist swings, for example. And we really feel we've got good facilities in some areas, and we need to have access to them for the people who wish to use them. Picking up on the toilets, that's the crossover with this particular group as well, because absolutely agree it's essential to enhance Taunton Green. I lived there for 18 years of my life. It was my local park. I know it very, very well, and the loss of the toilets is significant. Like you said, there are multiple sports. We're trying to improve our sports provision, and those toilets are an important part of that. So that's that one. There is also some Section 106 funding available for improvements to one of our 4 parks in the North Taunton area, of which Taunton Green is one. So we intend to submit an expression of interest by the grants officer by March the 14th. So that's next week. There's only basic ideas that are required for that initial expression of interest. Then they invite us to submit a full proposal. So the last update is that indicative costs are being sought by the Open Spaces lead for safety and access surfacing on a park by park basis, and we hope to get those indicative proposals very quickly, so we can apply for that Section 106 money quite quick and feed the rest of it into the wider accessibility project. Okay, thank you.
That's good. Cool. Yes, Councillor Fernandez.
I'm just going to chip in about Darlington Park. So once you've actually done the access and the surface and the safety elements in the first tranche, then you'll be starting to move on to look at the parks in order of need. And I'd like to think that Darlington Park is up that order of need for the next tranche.
Yeah, I agree. There are so many things that are wrong about the placement of the equipment, the ground levels, all that sort of stuff. There is a piece of work which will come on the agenda that may have an impact on our timescales for Darlington Park, but agreed, pretty poor, and the opportunity to improve it, sensible cost is there. So yes, surfacing globally, probably priority 1. And then I think that will be reasonably well up the list.
Thank you.
Yeah, just picking up on that, I just want to second that. Obviously it's in my division, but it has been, you know, there was a whole history at SWT of us fighting off development on the park, which was, you know, took it out of a lot of people. And after that, we were like, phew, thank goodness, but there is so much potential there. And I just remember when the consultant was on that screen and he was sort of seemed to be saying, well, I don't think it has any potential as a play park. People are just going to go elsewhere. And I'm like, what that's saying to me is I think we then need to get this, the Galmington play park really needs a big piece of work doing on it. And I think there were lots of ideas that the Friends group had back in the day about what they wanted to see there, from community orchard to where they wanted the play equipment relocated. So kind of, I think it needs its own mini project really. And so to have, like, you know, some, I don't know, consultant, I mean, rather like what happened back to French Weir back in the day, there was a whole kind of scheme worked up, and residents through the Friends group had access to consultants, but it was very much, the scheme that they come up with was very much based on what residents wanted to see. And that was a really brilliant, you know, brilliant scheme that they came up with. And I think, to my mind, it's not, you've got the sports pitches, great, and whatever, people walk their dogs and that, and kids, whenever I've been up there, there's always kids doing something or other up there. And I just think, you know, it needs a proper, let's really invest, because it's amazing. I mean, the space is amazing, the views and everything. Again, it's one of those that is just an overlooked little jewel in Taunton's crown. So I think it needs a bigger piece of work and a bit more in terms of future spend allocated to it, in terms of doing that groundwork, in terms of what would be the master plan almost for Garmington Park. And then you can have, so invest in that sort of master planning, community engagement, and then have a sort of something early on that we can deliver quite quickly. And then a sort of phased thing if it needs to be that. Does that make sense?
Sorry. My open spaces lead is liaising with a chap from the Friends group whose name escapes me right now.
Andy Sharman.
That's yeah. So he's arranged a meeting with Andy to have a look at thinking ideas and making sure that what we ultimately propose doesn't conflict with something else that might be of benefit. So we just get that better understanding. There will be consultation required on within all of the parks, and obviously it's up to the working group to decide exactly what that journey looks like. But yeah, I agree with all those points.
I think when I reflect back on the report, Garmington Park was one that scored the worst for all parks. I mean, and I think it's the aim of this town that everyone should have access to a decent park on their doorstep. It shouldn't have to be forced to go to another park just to get. We should all be within 10 minutes of a decent park. I do agree with that, Garmington. It's unfortunately having a lot of work, isn't it? Because we've had the way we go through it, and then there's a potentially what's coming up next. But other than that, I think that it's having the open foundation set. Were there any other comments? Working group. Right. Okay, so item 7, operations and assets action plan. We're here tonight to review it and to offer any comments, hopefully constructive comments, and just that we can feed back. So this is, I emphasise that this is a draft, and we just want members' views on this. Councillor Garside.
I'd just like to say that I thought it was a very positive plan. I liked it very much. I like the fact that it pays attention to heritage. It also is open-ended. So, you know, whatever future acquisitions come to Taunton Town Council, it makes provision for that. I thought it was a very forward-thinking plan. I really congratulate you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Ellis?
This is one where I did read it and I had thoughts and I now can't remember because I didn't write them down. So I'm bound to think of something else in a minute, but anyway, one thing is about like the future. So there's little pockets of land around and about Taunton that are not in our hands that we might like to be. So, for example, on Tangier, backing onto Greenbrook Terrace, there is this walled thing. And I can't remember when we've had previous discussions, these were informal discussions, I think with Ollie Watset, who's now left Somerset. Yeah, and it was a case of do us a list and then later we can discuss it. But I don't know where all that's gone in terms of, because it sounded to me like they were quite at that point up for just handing that over, and that might have lots of potential for community food growing and gardening and whatever, because that's what it's been used for in the past. There's also that little corner, there's all sorts of little plots here, there and everywhere that are a bit unloved, and we could really potentially utilize them, drawing in on volunteers, and I'm sure Jordan will have lots of ideas for what to do with them. And it's just how do we take that forward?
I certainly agree that we should be identifying these areas of land which we can develop.
So I think they've been identified. I think we need to look at scaling up. We're just about to launch the open spaces service on 1st of April and take over what Somerset have been looking after with our existing parks. I think honestly we shouldn't run before we can walk, and it's a stage thing. So I would imagine in a year's time we would be in a position to be able to accept more open spaces. I think that's the general notion within Somerset. Do that. We're happy with that timescale, and certainly Jordan's involvement in that and meeting our objectives around biodiversity and accessibility and all those sort of things absolutely run through this. So there won't be variance from that when those pockets come to us. But we need to be able to look after them properly as well. And at the moment, we haven't got those resources to do that.
Any further comments?
I have another thought. This is where all of the discussion around the municipal building has got to.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully, we managed to set a balanced budget yesterday. That wasn't fun, but we did it. And fortunately, there is this thing, even if we hadn't, well, actually, we got the Somerset got its capitalisation directive thing. Luckily, apparently, there's something in the letter from the minister when saying, yes, you can have this capitalisation directive that specifically says you better not be selling any of your heritage assets, matey, which gave me a bit of, I definitely want to look up and double check the wording on that, because that's quite critical, because capitalisation directive means it's not extra money that Somerset's been given, it's basically the ability to go and sell off assets and use that to fund revenues, or go and borrow money and use it to fund services. So that gave me some comfort, but my very strong aspiration is that the municipal building should be in the hands of the municipality. And it might not be one of these burning priorities, given the fact that I don't think they're going to go and try and flog it at this point, or do anything silly with it like they're doing with the Market House. I think it should be our aspiration that building should be in our hands, and that we should be kind of planning ahead and trying to kind of make that happen. Because we've got them, there's a mayor's parlour in there, isn't there, Vanessa?
There is.
And the mayor doesn't have anywhere really where the mayor's parlours sort of historically are sort of where the mayor can receive guests, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, I have actually visited the mayor in his parlour in the past, and another mayor, and I was pleasantly surprised at how luxurious it was and how I was received. I actually see people in the county hotel. That's my office. They know me. I meet people in there. Donna offered me a room here, and I thought, well, I can't invite all these people, sometimes elderly, to Deane House and to stagger up the stairs and meet me in a little room here. I didn't think was very pleasant. So that's my compromise. But I agree, the mayor of Taunton should have a proper room, and in fact the municipality should have this beautiful building. It is the most beautiful building in Taunton. It's my favourite building. Architecturally it's lovely. It could be divine, you know, and it's such a shame, and it's unique to Taunton as well, you know, and I think if we want to celebrate Taunton's heritage, which is one of the aspirations of the plan, then we definitely need that building, because that is so much part of our heritage.
I took solace, so yesterday's meeting I took solace from that, and another member, Somerset councillor, raised it as a question, didn't they? And then he specifically said, with reference to this, you know, you cannot sell buildings of heritage. Was it cultural value as well? Or was it just heritage? Anyway, someone did actually say, oh, does this mean Market House is now off the menu? You know, can you remember what the reply was?
I can't do that. We'll have to watch back the 5.5 many hours.
I think after 5.5 hours, I think none of us were listening. So but I remember hearing the question.
Yeah.
I mean, it was written, but someone did raise that. Someone challenged Somerset Council saying, this is what the minister has said. Does this mean the Market House? And there was another building in Bridgewater, wasn't it? These now off menu. So there you go. You've got nothing else to do when you get home, and look at yesterday's meeting. Skim forward to hour 5.5, and you'll get the answer. So yes. So no, I think it's good. I think we're doing it with our plan. I think in discussions, and thank you very much, Paul, because you spent time writing this. So thank you very much. And I noticed there was a lot of specifics. I was wondering whether, I'm assuming this is a plan that has to be redone every so often, so many
Yeah,
years.
it'll last for 3 years.
3 years.
We'll review it.
Yeah.
I welcome any alterations, because there are a couple that I want to make, having read through it again.
Yeah.
That are more general forward future stuff rather than being specific to something that's happening now. So I wanted to make sure they were flexible enough to take us into the future as a notion rather than just specifically for that project, if you like. So any other suggestions, I'm happy to receive those.
So the one I was suggesting, of course, in Premier, obviously we're recognising that we are using biodiesel fuels at the moment, but I'd like to see in the plan a commitment to move towards electric vehicles as and when they are economically viable. Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, just neatly following on from that, because I have a meeting with Jordan today where she was updating me on, oh my gosh, the vast amount of work that she's been doing. Absolutely incredible. She's amazing. And she was sort of talking about a sort of related aspect to this, which my stupid brain hadn't actually kind of clocked earlier, which is that it's not just about electrification, but it's also about using less heavy duty stuff, using some sort of, more natural traditional ways of maintaining, managing, especially open spaces, obviously, but doesn't rely on heavy duty equipment. So it's probably, if this reminds me, so I was just going to say, if Jordan has given this the once over, or if she could give that the relevant sections the once over, because I didn't realise we haven't actually published the climate action plan on the website, but she'd given that the once over because we had a delegated thing about tightening that up, and so she's been on that, onto that. So I think it might be a good idea just to make sure she's happy with it from a sustainability and biodiversity point of view, because she totally knows her stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I know about the discussion over the use of strippers and leaf blowers. So yeah, that's good. And I think we would like to see in this plan a more commitment to more green processes and methods in looking after our open spaces, and also a more commitment to putting photovoltaic cells on top of the roofs and buildings that we own, especially our toilets. I think that's kind of a long-lasting strategy enough. Good. Do I have any other comments, or are we happy to move on? Yeah. Okay.
Can I?
Ollie.
Yeah, so the recommendation is to recommend this to full council, but could we have a vote maybe to note the plan? And I've got down the recommendations to have like a commitment to electric vehicles and to get climate and place officer to look over the plan as well. So can we just get a vote?
Yes. So I don't believe this is ready to go to full council.
No, so we can disregard that
Right.
recommendation, but just have a vote to note those.
Yes. So could you just confirm the wording for our sort of proposal?
Yeah, so so members noted the operations and assets strategy plan and recommended that there would be a commitment to electric vehicles added and to have the climate officer to look over the operations and assets strategy plan.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stapleton. All those in favour? Yeah. Right, next one, Garrington Park preparatory works for the car parking service. We're going to consider undertaking a soaking testing exercise to understand the suitability of the Garrington Park car park to be hard surface, and it's going to be a budgeted cost of £2,195. That. Will we need to take a vote on this at the end?
Yeah.
Right. Paul, are you want to do?
I'm happy to do that. So we have issues with parking at Garrington Park, commuter parking, both there and at Taunton Green. funnily enough. So we're looking at introducing parking restrictions via pay and display for certain times of the day or a maximum time period. Marcus has been working with Somerset colleagues on the parking services to look at what that arrangement might look like. However, there's no point having pay and display if we can't mark out the parking spaces and have a decent surface on which to park. Darwington presents a problem in that the lie of the land is opposed to where natural drain off onto the field would happen. So the reason we're going for this is because we have to dig a big hole, fill it with lots of water, and see how quickly that water level drops. And that will indicate the permeability of the ground beneath the playing surfaces. And that will determine whether that ground has a capacity to absorb the water that's likely to run off the car park rather than flooding the nearby properties when the angle of the ground is changed to make it come in the right direction. So it's an initial soak test. We're funding it out of existing budgets, but if it's positive, if it shows positive results, and then there develops a project to surface and line that car park, then we would look at SIL funding for that, and this bit of the work would then flip into that SIL funding retrospectively. So for that reason, it will have to go to full council if you guys approve it. But initially, just to carry out the soak testing to see if that project then develops legs and can be developed further. So the recommendation is to support the soak testing exercise to understand the suitability of the car park to be hard surfaced. The preferred contractor is TEC. They're not the cheapest contractor. They're the second cheapest by 60 quid. And the reason we would prefer to go with them is because they are more local in Wales than the other one, who is the other two contractors are Wolverhampton and Weybridge based. So we're just conscious of the journey time to get here and the carbon footprint, and want to go for the better option overall. So it's that is the recommendation to support.
Right, cool. Councillor Staples.
Yeah. That is. Yeah, a couple of things on Darlington Park. Soak retest. I'll be interested to see what the results would be if we go ahead with the test, because most of that area is clay soil.
Yeah.
And I suspect it's not going to be a positive result. I know the soak retest they did round us. It's why the suds up in Orchard Grove aren't soak away suds. They are just basins that hold water because it doesn't soak away. My question would then be, if it fails the soak away test, what do you do? Because obviously you've got to be careful in terms of resurfacing from a flood risk point of view for local houses. Has that been thought about, or are you just at the point of looking at the test?
But just to the point of finding out facts at this point in time. Until we've done that, there is no direction. So it might be that the soak away test is that bad that that project can't go anywhere. That then leaves a problem to be resolved. So the obvious thing linked with Taunton Green, which has not got the same issue, that's fairly straightforward, but suffers from the same issue. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And you're right. If it fails, what is the next step?
I mean, we might be lucky, and there might be a pocket there where it is fairly sandy soils or lighter soils, but that side of Taunton is very clay, and that's why we have, you know, quite a lot of flooding issues, and it's why we have all the suds along Arlington Stream and through Glassy Speeding things. But
Yeah,
it would be
unfortunately,
about
try.
potential options. There might be. I mean, there must be some options. You can't just say we can't put a car park there because it'll flood houses. There must be options, but then it would come down to cost.
Yes.
I would imagine.
Yes, because that option might look like reciting the car park to somewhere else that has the right falls, you know, potentially on the opposite side of the park along Hogan's Lane, something like that. So it's a starting point. It will give us the data from which to then consider best way forward, which will have to come back to you guys anyway.
Councillor Furman, you had to.
My question was going to be what's plan B, but you've answered that.
Okay.
Plan B is an expensive one. Plan A is bad enough.
Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously vital. This is obviously, you know, we could end up determining that actually that where it is now not viable, because we do not want residents to have any more hassle than they already have up there. They've just, the residents parking thing is finally, the signs are going in and it's all happening. Oh my days. The surface up there is obviously in a state, so it's our land, we own it, it's up to us what to do with it. So I absolutely support your proposal. Let's go and do the tests and whatever. What we have to be very careful about in relation to our future plans for areas where we have car parks, so whether it's at Galmington or Taunton Green, is to consult and look at all options and consider very carefully, if we're introducing any element of charging, what's the rationale for that? What's the impact on different users? Because as we've seen with Somerset's current proposals, somebody sat down in an office and went, oh, need to make some more money out of this, and then we'd have a bit more money for maintenance, and came up with something that actually is just, well, A, unworkable, and B, is, you know, trash various town centre economies and have all sorts of impacts on that. They haven't considered any of the sort of knock-on impacts about where you displace those cars to, or the fact that, you know, if you have charging, then the people, you know, then you won't get the income you think you will, because it will put people off. So I just think we have to be very, very careful if we're looking at introducing charging. Let's not do a Somerset, let's do it in the right way and really think it through. So for Galmington's point of view, the residents, obviously they're going to have their residents parking. It's annoying if those spaces are clogged up by Musgrove workers. I mean, I really feel for them, I really do, but it shouldn't be a blooming commuter car park. But you've got people who might want to come and use, you know, parents during the day who live a bit far away, people, you know, disabled people but who have a, you know, blue badge, need to access green space. So, and people accessing it for sporting reasons obviously need the parking facility. So we just really need to be really rigorous in thinking through whatever we come up with in terms of if we want to introduce pay and display, who are the users, what impact it's going to have on them, and what of it, you know, what's the collateral impact, and not do anything before we've thought all of that through, and then do proper consultation and engagement on it, and like what's happened within Somerset.
Paul and then Councillor Sally.
So our aspirations with the parking are starting from a very different starting point to those at Somerset, which, as we know, are for income generation. This is specifically to solve a problem. So it is anticipated that, you know, we know how long the sports match lasts. We know how long somebody might want to go and play tennis or play on the parks. You know, 2 hours, 3 hours maximum parking, and then a charge is introduced. That's the sort of direction we would like to take with it. And you're right, the consultation is absolutely important with this, but our outcomes are wholly different.
Yeah.
We cannot. So we're looking at adding these car parks to Somerset system because we don't have the capacity to attach penalties to overstayers. So there will be no income for town council. The parking system would pay for its upkeep in terms of that provision. So we're not making money from it. It's there to solve a commuter-based issue.
Sorry, I'll just mention this now. I mean, you're probably aware of this, but there's a very small specialist school based up at Taunton Green, and I don't know where. Yeah, we're at Five Rivers. So we also need to factor in things like that. So I'm sure they have vehicles, the staff, and they might. I don't know if they've got a minibus or something like that. So you'll factor that in as well, won't you?
Councillor Dunn, then Councillor Fernandez, and then.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things I was going to bring up. We have the same problem in one of our parks in Watford. Exactly the same thing where the car parks always got flooded. We then use deep subsoil drainage, and it goes down about 4 foot, and that solved the problem straight away. So I don't know why we've not looked at that. The second thing, yeah, I was going to bring up, all your information on the prices includes VAT. We can claim VAT back.
Yes, well,
So
we,
why do we actually show it? Thank you.
that amount includes the fact that we're what, no, 2195 plus VAT. So the quote overall will show the VAT element and the gross, but the amount is 2195 plus VAT. It's the going to park grounds maintenance budget. In terms of the drainage, this is a starting point. We don't know if deep drainage would work. It's very disruptive to the sports pitches, and we need to establish the baseline. Once we've got that, it might be permeable enough, in which case we don't even need to consider it. But there are options for drainage and different soakaways and spreading it across a wider, shallower area, for example. Implications with each of those, but majorly with that type of drainage disruption to the football pitches and the loss of income while those pitches recover, which will take a year.
So we can just, are you paying the VAT?
We pay the VAT. We work in a net figure.
Yeah.
We pay VAT. We claim
And then
VAT
claim
back
it
because we're a council. So we always show prices as net amount.
You want to come back?
Yes, sorry about that. I'm not going to say where it is, but somewhere very close to here, we're having the same problem again with drainage. And again, we have decided on deep drainage. It does work. Because what they normally do is go down to about 4 foot, put in, I think I'll get it right around, it's shingle, sand, and that drains it away, and you guide the water to where you want to go. So that does work.
Yeah, so we've had 3 companies so far, 3 surfacing companies that have come and had a look, and all 3 have made the same recommendation. Hence, we're at the position we are now to get that starting point.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, it's just to sort of just to come back on the point earlier. I had to write it down to remind myself. If we're thinking about if we have to potentially move the car park, we've just got to bear in mind that that field is a field in trust. So we just have to be mindful about development and get the sort of say so from them. So.
Councillor Fernandez?
If we're going to be putting in a pay and display machine, that's obviously going to need to go through Somerset planning, which is going to have its own costs as well. So that's something we'll need to factor as well.
Yeah, so we're talking to Somerset about how that works, and under their existing blanket, there don't seem to be challenges around that.
Right, so there are no further comments. And our recommendation is okay, so we are seeking support to undertake preliminary sector thing to ascertain. So we're considering undertaking a soaking test exercise to understand the suitability of the Gampton car park and spending out of budgeted cost of £2,195. So considered all the options. Do I have a proposer for this? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tully. All those in favour? Lovely. Yeah. Forward to the hearing the results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Right, next item, Taunton Green Park improved access restrictions. So we are going to consider the installation of 5 retractable, lockable steel bollards to restrict unauthorised access at a budgeted cost of £3,277.90p. We've done a similar thing at Prior's Park. where we also put in a height restriction. This is avoiding a height restriction, not just putting in bollards, which I think is we need to do given the issues we've had at Taunton Green with travellers. Paul, would you like to talk more about?
Yeah, so obviously we had an issue there last year. It cost us a bob or two to move those people on. They moved 50 yards up the road, where they were probably dealt with in a different way. The work at Priorswood Park, which the committee authorised, has now been completed actually this week. The height restriction of the bollards went in some time ago. It's taken a while to get a contractor to meet what was left as remaining authorised budget for that project. That has finally happened this week, so I'm thankful to tick that one off because it's been a little while. However, we don't consider that Taunton Green is appropriate for a height barrier. The entrance to the park is, of particular interest. It would spoil the aesthetics. So we've got some removable barrier bollards currently between the car park and the play park. This proposal is to take those out and put the more permanent drop down bollards in their place, because anybody with a big screwdriver can take out those plastic bollards. They're not resilient to unauthorized access. So it's to put, I think it was 3 across, maybe 4 across the top, and a couple between the Five Rivers bungalow and the semicircular raised flower bed that goes towards the pavilion, just to close the gaps up, allow for wheelchair use and mobility scooters and prams and double buggies and all that sort of stuff, but restrict wider vehicles from getting onto the field. And I think that's all that's needed in that park, and it should give us the same sort of resilience as what we've now got in Priorswood, but for a lot less money.
And as you said, they are retractable.
They're retractable. They're less bulky than the other ones as well, and we would have the keys suited alike, so they're the same as the Priorswood ones in terms of maintenance access. We just issue a key to our open spaces teams, and they can go into any of the parks with the same key, which is far more convenient.
Do I have any comments from members? Councillor Ellis?
This is a no-brainer, isn't it? Very sensible, practical, let's get it, let's crack on, I think, yeah.
Are our members happy to move straight to the vote?
Yeah.
So we are considering the installation of 5 retractable lockable steel bollards to restrict unauthorised access at a budgeted cost of £3,277.98. Can I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Carson. Can I have a seconder? You, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Duly passed. Yes, there were no. Just like I say, there were no. That's unanimous. I keep going to say that. There's no need to go far. It's always unanimous. So right, last item. We are doing very well. Transport Hub Building 2 to pursue Section 106 funding. We are considering the pursuance of an application for Section 106 funding to carry out the required refurbishment and conversion of Building 2 to provide a community facility. So we have acquired this building at a nominal transactional value of £1, and I think anyone who went to see it last August was very excited by the prospect. We've got a changing places from there. We've got opportunity for some more toilets. And when we saw the rest of the building, we saw an opportunity to create a community space. So, however, it is going to cost to do that. Paul, are you happy to? You've done a lot of the work on this. Are you happy?
Yes. So we had a survey carried out of Building 2. There were a number of issues which those having looked around it will realise the obvious, that it's a little bit sad. And that little bit of sadness is to the tune of an estimated £160,000 worth of remedials to bring it up to standard. So that's just to get it livable, if you like. The rest of the money that's needed is to convert it into what we want to use it for. And that community use is still to be agreed and decided. However, that first floor space is a really great space, and it would need a lift access to it and things like that. So it's quite an expensive thing, but in the town centre, a really valuable asset to have for community use, particularly if elements of it can generate income, like potentially a little cafe or food outlet, and the proposal to put additional toilets in there, which would relieve pressure on the existing facilities in Castle Green, which are really, really tired. So the total estimated figure, and it is an estimate, is around about £260,000. However, the Killam's development, the Killam's extension, has got a pot there of £292,040.27, and building 2 falls within the mile radius of this location to be able to use that SIL funding. So this recommendation is to support the pursuance of an application for Section 106 funding from that pot to carry out the required refurbishment and conversion of building 2 to provide a community facility.
Yeah, Councillor Ellis.
I think this falls into the category of no-brainer, doesn't it? So, I mean, but I am curious. I'm curious about, how the thing about bidding for Section 106 works. So who do we're applying to Somerset Council,
Yes.
and is it like just an officer sort of sits and says, right, this lot of the plot want to do this lot want to do that, and then they just like go, is that how it works?
I don't know exactly how it works. My understanding is we put an expression of interest in to say these funds, we know we've been advised of these funds. We want to apply for some of that funding. Our knowledge so far is that there are no other claims against this amount of funding, and the guidelines are it has to fall within a mile radius of the site that generated it in the first place. So when you look at the planning application that's produced this money and you put the ARC in, building 2 falls within it, which is very fortuitous from our perspective. So we would put the expression of interest in. They would then ask us, look at that, consider it, ask us to submit our application. So this is the initial pursuance, expression of interest. There's a pot there, and let's have some of it and develop this community facility.
I just asked if there's the 1 mile radius from Killam's. Does that comfort fall wholly within our parish, or does it fall in somebody else's parish and they possibly could have a claim as well?
There's no claim so far, but that's not to say that.
No, what really is it possible there could be another claim? Because it could have 1 mile radius. It might be
Potentially, it's probably further than that, actually.
Okay. Just an interest, just out of interest.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
I don't think anyone from Crawford is not listening.
Ask any more questions, Nick.
Sting thought. Yeah. I was Catatali, so.
Thank you. Right, I've been told that no question is stupid. This is probably the most stupid of all. We're talking about the old bus station, yes?
Yeah.
Right. And is there 2 buildings? Because that says building 2. Is there 2 different buildings? So,
Yeah.
right, it's 1 building, but
There's the main one where the staff used to, the main sort of building where all the buses parked. Then the second building, which is next to it, where all the staff had their tea.
Yeah.
And that's the one that we've got.
Right, the next silly question to ask. Is the bus station going to actually start operating as a bus station? Because we're spending this money, we need to have people there who will actually use it. People are not going to come from the town to use it, unless of course we don't own Paul Street.
So we've already got the changing places toilet, which we're committed to opening, which Somerset Council have paid for. So that's going to be active within the next week or so. That in itself is there and will draw people that have specific needs to that area. The larger project around forming that as a community hub and linking it into Castle Green, as I understand it, is developed fairly well with Somerset, to the point where they're looking at which contractor is likely to deliver that. So there is a firm plan there, which has been developed over some time. And they're as keen as anybody to get going with that. We're looking at potentially a year's worth of building, but this is running alongside that, and each will complement the other, I'm sure. The details of that rest with Somerset. It's not my place to expand on what that project looks like, because it's their project, but it's well known, it's well documented out in the public domain. And we're looking forward to seeing what that might look like in conjunction with our building.
Councillor Ellis?
Yeah, no, it's just to know if what we were estimating 260,000 to do, bring it, does that include obviously things like insulation and new windows, unless it's stuff like that, but will it also extend to renewable energy and other things like that, or is that something we'll have to do on top of?
That would be ours too. We'd need to bring the EPC rating up to the highest level that's affordable. But alternative technologies, it's got a nice flat roof. We know the rough costs of some of those things, because we're already starting to put them on our own buildings, on our toilet blocks and pavilions. So it's not a big chunk of that amount of money. But I think there's scope there. The worst case scenario from the survey is that priced schedule of remedial works. They always err on the side of caution. I think there are some savings to be made there, but putting this money on top will certainly help. But I think the first thing is applying for the section 106 in the first instance, because if that's no go, then we've got a budgeted amount, but it might limit what we wish to do with it.
And there's potential to improve the building. I've seen you wanting sales.
That photovoltaics on the top, subject to insurance and all the other things that go along with that, would be phenomenal. Yeah. And that aligns with our climate strategy. It's still to be published, but obviously well advanced. And certainly with my strategy and plan. So I think that's a given for the development of any buildings.
I think in relation to Councillor Tony's question, I think the fact that we've got this wonderful changing place toilets there will be a draw enough when people start to come to that building. So it'd be good to take it on and start offering other opportunities there, like community space there, because people will start to come towards that building just simply because of the changing places.
This isn't a commitment at this point to spend anything on the building. This is the first port of call to try and see the availability of that section 106 money. That's what we're asking you to support today.
And I think this is I'm happy to move back to folks. I think I think this makes perfect sense. If you can get funding for it, not avoid the precept or that'd be good. So we are considering the pursuance of an application for the section 106 funding to carry out the required refurbishment and conversion of building 2 and to provide a community facility. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Bowden, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Garson. All those in favour? That motion is carried unanimously, so I don't have to go any objections or abstentions. Right, well, that is it. That is a wrap, as they say.